When new prospective authors first reach out to me, one of the first things that I asked in the application form, as a matter of fact, is what type of service they're looking for. Now, we offer two big buckets. We have a couple of different packages for people who want ghostwriting, and we also have a couple of packages for people who want book coaching. Now, what I find is that a lot of people really don't feel sure about which of these services is going to be best for them and their project. And that can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty, because you're effectively then going in to request a consult with someone and you don't really know what you're looking for. So I thought it would be so helpful to record this video today and talk to you a little bit about how to decide whether you want a ghostwriter or whether a book coach is going to be better for you and your goals. Stay tuned. If you have been waiting for a sign that it's time to start your book, this is it. From now until the end of March 2024, every new client who signs on with Page and Podium will be grandfathered in to the 2023 price structure. That is a 20% savings off of our rates going forward. You won't want to miss this. Head over to pageandpodium.com/contact to apply. I can't wait to hear about your book. Okay, so are you going to be better served by working with a ghostwriter or a book coach? Well, let's start by drawing a line between those two services, because I know a lot of times there's a lot of confusion. There are a lot of different ways that these services are described and worded and different things that they're called. Okay, so first of all, if you are looking at working with a ghostwriter, this is not as simple as I find a lot of people assume. A lot of times I think people think they're just going to kind of write a brief or write an outline, hand it over. The next time they hear from that ghostwriter, the book will be finished. It'll be great. That is probably a way that some ghostwriters work, to be honest. Nobody that I know, though. For the most part, when we are talking about ghostwriting, we are talking about a service where you are going to provide the information for the book. So this could be through existing things that you've already written, blog posts. It could be through things like podcasts or videos, other marketing kinds of materials, or you even might have part or all of a very rough draft. You will hand that over, but most ghostwriters are going to want to interact with you at different points in the process. We pretty much see our ghostwriting clients once a week. Some ghostwriters, it may be more like once a month or even just a few times a year. But whatever the case is, you are going to be putting in regular input and marking up, giving feedback, asking for revisions. But the big difference is you are not the one that will do the writing. Now, depending on the package, depending on the service, you may be the one that is doing a big a heavy lift of the revisions. So it may be that you're not doing the writing, but you are going through and making changes and that kind of thing. Or you may work with a service, this is our kind of full package, where you just request the revisions you want and the ghostwriter or their team will implement them. But with a ghostwriting package, the thing I want you to know is it is not hands-off. It is, at least for us, it is very intensive and very intimate process of working with your writer to make sure it's in your voice, make sure that book has the content that you want, and to make sure that whatever your vision is exists and is being adapted into something that is going to be really attractive to agents, publishers, and readers. On the other side of the coin, you might also work with a book coach. Now, again, there's a lot of kind of different ways that people do this, but typically if you hear book coach, as opposed to writing coach or writing class or writing teacher, you are looking at someone who is not necessarily going to help you learn to write. So it's not going to be grammar. It's probably not going to be like prompts that you get and you kind of practice answering them. When you are working with a book coach, the thing that they are coaching you on, of course, is writing a book. So really book coaches, and this is true for me when I work with people and Emily in our company, but most book coaches, as they work with you, the things they're going to focus on, overall book structure. They're going to work with you on making sure that your chapters flow, that they're cohesive, that they get the point that you're trying to make across. And they're going to help you write those really vivid scenes. So whether this is a standard nonfiction, whether it is a memoir or a fiction book, a novel, as you are working with the book coach, they're going to help you bring the scenes and the stories to life as well. What a book coach probably will not do, though, is help kind of correct your grammar, kind of help with that kind of thing. For the most part, you're getting help with book structure and you're getting accountability from your book coach. Of course, the really big glaring difference here from ghostwriting is that it is you who is doing the writing. Now, does that mean that your book coach is totally hands-off during the rest of the program? Maybe, maybe not. For our clients, if you work in a one-on-one setting with us, we meet once a week for a 50-minute call. And then we also have our book coaching clients send in about 3,000 words, it's about 10 pages, per week of their ongoing project. So that usually for my clients works out to about a chapter, depending on kind of what your book is. It may be a little less or a little bit more, but you are getting feedback on that draft. And then you're coming into a session to talk about strategies for moving the book forward and for keeping yourself on track. So again, really the big difference, of course, is that with ghostwriting, you are not doing the writing, but you are still heavily involved. On the other hand, with book coaching, you are doing the writing, but the book coach is still heavily involved. So either way, you are looking at a partnership. And what I find is that when people start to understand that, it does not make the decision any easier. In fact, it makes it a lot harder, right? Because if you know that you are still investing time when you work with a ghostwriter, if you know that you are still getting a lot of outside support with a book coach, it's really hard to measure the differences. So the bulk of today's video, I want to talk through some of the things that you should really consider as you're thinking about whether you want a ghostwriter or a book coach. So the first of these, probably pretty obvious, is do you want to write your book? But I want to rephrase that a little bit. Do you like writing on a book? Now, for some people, you've maybe never really tried this, and I would encourage, before you make one decision either way, I would encourage you to try on your own. Now, if you need support kind of getting started, getting your outline going, that is something that we can help you with. Reach out, we can kind of we can do our Kickstart package, get you going so you can try this out on your own. But even just making sure that you're kind of making an attempt, see if you like, playing with your outline, see if you like writing scenes, see if you like explaining the topic and the message that you want to get across. If you do not enjoy the process, you will not finish. And I know that is a black and white statement, but what if I make a little progress? I promise you, if you do not enjoy the process, if you hate every single second, there's no kind of gem that you're taking away. You will not finish. Writing a book is really, really hard. It takes a lot of perseverance. It takes a lot of dedication. Life happens, and of course we, balance out the other things going on. So sometimes we're working faster, sometimes we're working slower. But if you want to write a book yourself, it is absolutely imperative that you enjoy at least some of the process. Okay, so if you start writing, you start working on your book, and you are just like, I hate this, I feel so lost, I guess I'm just not a writer, I hear a lot of people say that, then probably ghostwriting is going to make a lot more sense for you. We don't ever want anybody's book to be a burden, right? We don't want it to feel like, I wish I wasn't doing this, because then you probably just wouldn't do it, right? So we want to make sure that whichever piece, whether it's the writing and the ideas, or just the ideas, that you get to really focus on the part that you love. So if you want to write your book yourself, and if you enjoy writing books yourself, you should hands down go with book coach. If, on the other hand, you just dread writing any kind of anything, Ghostwriter is almost always going to be the way to go. Or, maybe think about another format to get your story out. Videos, podcasts, that kind of thing. So beyond this idea of liking or wanting to write your book, it's also really important to ask yourself whether it is important to you. So in other words, when you finish that book, when that book, it's published, it's in your hands, is it going to be really meaningful for you to talk about the process of writing it? And as you talk about the process, does it make you feel uncomfortable to talk about having somebody do some of the writing, that heavy lift for you? The reason I ask this is that I find a lot of times people will really blur together the two pieces of any book. The first piece being the actual ideas, the content, the story, the message, what you are trying to say, and what you hope that content is going to do in the world. Now that piece, that is so important. If you do not have a passion for getting your ideas out, your stories out, if you don't feel that that piece is important, I bet you're probably not even watching this video, but you're probably not going to be successful writing a book, right? That is pretty key. This other piece, this piece of writing a book that is the words that you choose, the language, the way you're structuring your language and your sentence structure, the way that you are actually sitting down at the keyboard and typing out your words. Some people find that to be a really key reason that they want to write a book. And there's all kinds of reasons, sometimes we've just dreamt of doing that. It sounds kind of romantic. And maybe truly that is the next challenge in kind of your life's list of challenges, right? And it is challenging, but you can do it if you really set your mind to it. But here's why I ask whether it is important to you to have the story piece or the writing piece, because either way, you're getting this story piece, right? But if you find that it's really, really important to you to understand the process of writing, to be able to see, kind of firsthand and sitting at the keyboard, how the book goes onto the page, if it's really, really important to you to talk about writing, then a book coach is going to be the way to go. A lot of times I find when people are really attached to that kind of writer identity or the vision they have of writing their book, a ghostwriter is just not a good choice. They just are never going to really feel comfortable giving up that much control and giving up that much of the actual work of typing out the words. And that is really closely related to the next point that I want to make. And that is, you've just got to know yourself. How much control are you willing to turn over? Now, with any good ghostwriter, you are not going to hand your idea over and have the ghostwriter take it and you never hear from them until the whole book is done. That should not ever be the way that you're looking to work with a ghostwriter. You should be actively involved in the ideas development process. But sometimes people want control as every single piece of that manuscript goes onto the page. So if they were working with a ghostwriter, they would really want that draft, maybe say in a Google Doc. They would want to be kind of checking in with it as they go through the week and just kind of see how the writer's doing. And I will tell you, that is not going to be a really healthy relationship with your ghostwriter. If you really feel like you want control kind of at every single moment of that book taking shape, a book coach is going to be the way to go. Because a book coach might give you some feedback, but you never have to take it, right? When I get my clients, when they send their 3,000 word, their 10 pages a week, I will mark up and I will, highlight places where I see repeated errors in the actual grammar and syntax. More often though, I'm really just giving comments, things that, oh, I'd love to have you elaborate on this, or like, oh my gosh, this must have been so scary. How did it feel? Or even, I'm not sure that I follow the point that you're making here. All those comments though, my clients don't have to take any of those, right? And when I give client feedback, I always am very, very clear. Like, this is what I saw as a book coach, but really it is your vision. You are the one that decides in the end. In a way, that's also true of ghostwriting. You are the one that is calling the final shot. It's just that you're not going to be there as the draft goes onto the page. So again, you got to know yourself here. Are you somebody that is going to be able to give up the control, kind of give up that constant oversight of the project? You're going to get a lot out of it from a ghostwriter if you do that. But if you know that you're not going to be able to give the control up, it's going to just make you nervous and antsy, book coach is probably the way to go. Okay, and then the next point that I want to make, now that we have talked about this kind of division of labor, your comfort with the person that's taking the story in whichever direction they are helping you, I want to ask one question that is really, really key, and that is, are you writing now? Again, this is going to have to be, you know yourself, you trust yourself, because most of us are not writing books every day, right? That's a pretty unusual thing. And even with a book coach, nobody expects you to know how to already write a book. But remember what I said earlier, that my clients, for example, will send around 3,000 words most weeks. It is really important before you start working with a book coach that you feel confident that you can write 2,000 or 3,000 words, not necessarily in one sitting, right? You might start writing and then, you might parcel out through the week and you're kind of working on your chapter and kind of going back, playing with it. That is the joy of it, right? So that's not what I mean. What I mean is, are you confident that you can write a 3,000 word chapter? Because that is going to be really the baseline of sort of creative activity and confidence that a book coach is going to be able to work with. Now, it doesn't need to be that you're regularly even writing 3,000 word essays. It may be that you are journaling regularly, so you are getting your ideas out of your head onto the page. You are used to sitting down for however, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes uninterrupted during a time when you can actually get some words on the page. Could be that you're writing emails for work or newsletters, that kind of thing. Could be that, you're just out of college or grad school and you have been writing a different style, but that you have been writing. This can be really a whole range of things. But the thing that I really want to make sure that you're clear on is, if you have not written for, 10, 20 years since you were in school, it is going to be very, very difficult to pick that habit back up. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's going to be really hard. And to really get the bang for your buck in terms of money and time from your book coach, really where I would start is just practicing writing. If you're comfortable with the ghostwriter, of course, it doesn't matter if you've ever written, because the ghostwriter is going to do the writing part. But before you jump in with a book coach, just really make sure you are regularly creating. Now, if that point about needing to be a regular creator brought up alarm bells in your mind, you were like, when am I going to find time for that? Well, it may just be that a ghostwriter is going to be the best choice for you. Because my next question is, do you honestly have time to write this book yourself? Now, I give this breakdown from time to time, and I just always think it's useful to be really transparent and share what goes on behind the scenes at our ghostwriting agency. So when we are scheduling out client projects, figuring out, who has capacity and that kind of thing, we plan for one chapter per week. Now, when you work with us for ghostwriting, we are going to write a chapter, and that's usually, whoever your writer is. And then somebody else is going to take a look at it, make sure it's good, strong, make any kind of tweaks they can make to make sure it's a really strong first draft. For that process, we allow 5 hours for the drafting of that usually around 3,000 word chapter. And we also include another 2 hours or so for revisions. So 7, sometimes 8 hours are going into one 3,000 word chapter. If you are writing a business book, you are probably going to be looking at around, I usually suggest like 45,000. You can do, 30,000, but let's say you want to go for 45,000. So that is going to be 15 chapters. When we start adding this up, you're now looking at really about 4 months of needing to put in that 7 hours a week to get that first draft done. And of course, most people who are watching this channel, you probably aren't a professional writer, right? So it may take you more time than that. So really think about kind of how soon do I want this project done? How long am I willing to have this drafting part in my life? And just really look at your calendar. Do you have a few hours, a couple days a week? So sometimes people will write like a Saturday and a Sunday. Or do you have, about an hour a day? That can work too. Or maybe you're okay with doing, 2 weeks per chapter. In that case, you can kind of do the math, break down your calendar. But if you are writing with a book coach, you will need that time because, again, you need to get feedback on stuff as you're going. And if you're not able to make pretty quick progress, it can be hard to see the return on that. On the other hand, if you are working with a ghostwriter, you probably are only going to need an hour or two a week, depending on the stage of the process. So I have heard people say that what ghostwriters are actually selling is time. I don't completely agree with that, but I see what they're saying because truly it is a lot of time to write a book. And you do want to make sure that as you're going into it, you are really realistic on how long this is going to take you. Okay, now the last question that I have for you is actually not one that I want you to use. It's one I want you to avoid. And that is, what is your budget? What I find is that a lot of times when people come into this point of realizing that they need support and help with their book project, they will a lot of times say, well, I really would rather work with a ghostwriter, but it's so expensive. I don't know if I have the money. Is there just a cheaper service? Let me just do the book coaching. Now, you've already heard me talk through all of the many reasons that you might work with a ghostwriter versus work with a book coach. So you know that it is not an interchangeable situation. It is not as though, well, a ghostwriter is just a little bit more support. That is not the case. A ghostwriter is, first of all, a lot more support. And that is why it costs a lot more money. So as you're thinking about it, if you are somebody who says, I'm not a writer, or I really do not have time, then ghostwriting would be the way to go on that. But if you fit that profile, if you are somebody who doesn't like to write, you don't feel like you're a writer, you don't have time, it would be a huge mistake for you to hire a book coach. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to make progress. And in the long run, any money that you might or might not save probably isn't even going to get you to the goal that you want to get to, right? If you are somebody who you say, I'm just not a writer or I don't have time, then a ghostwriter is definitely the way that you should go because you're not going to make progress with a book coach. So is it going to save you money? Probably a little bit, but you might not even get to the goal, right? And to be able to really have that investment pay off, you have to have a book at the end of it. So what I don't want anybody to do is say, okay, well, I really need a ghostwriter, but I don't want to pay for it. Let me go with this kind of cheaper option. But then at the end, the cheaper option actually just was a big waste of your money, right? What I always want for folks is that you are making an investment that you are comfortable with and an investment that is going to end in you being able to get a return, right? So that if you spend $7,500 to work with a book coach for 9 months, I want you to get that $7,500 back. And what is going to be required of that, again, is that you enjoy writing, that you are, reasonably confident at it and practiced at it. You're doing it regularly, that you've got the time, all the things I talked about in this video. Because otherwise, really, I would spend a little more, get a ghostwriter, and recoup that investment rather than dropping a whole bunch on a book coach that isn't going to be able to get you all of those things you need to be successful. Okay, so I hope this gave you a little bit of clarity. Of course, every project is different and there are different ways that you're going to want to measure what you're trying to do and what you're willing to put into that in terms of time, in terms of control, and of course, in terms of money. Now, if you are finding, I just need a little more hands-on guidance, I just need to know a little bit more for me, I hope you will reach out, apply for an appointment with me. I would love to hear about your story, go over your options, and really think about how we can help you reach those goals. And you want to do so now, because only for this month, if you sign on with Page and Podium Press, either for ghostwriting or for book coaching, we are still going to honor our 2023 prices. I have more details on that. Stay tuned for the promo at the end. Thanks so much. Talk to y'all soon. Your book deserves the New York treatment. From writing support to editing to design, layout, publication, and marketing and promotion, Page and Podium has always been dedicated to bringing you the best-in-class support staff to make sure that your book reaches all of the amazing heights you know it can. In 2024, to deliver that level of amazing service, we are raising our prices. But you still have time to lock in your book at the 2023 prices if you act now. From now until the end of March 2024, any new client who signs their contract and pays their deposit will be grandfathered in at our 2023 rates, 20% lower than what we'll be moving to in 2024. You gotta act now. Head over to pageandpodium.com/contact to fill out your application. I'd be so excited to talk with you about your book and get you on the path to publishing that New York bestseller.